WBRP. We're a couple of hours away from the opening of the 2023 legislative session. And because of that, Moon Griffon's in town today. He's in studio this morning. Moon, welcome back. How are you, man?
Man, it's great to be back, man. I love it. You know, it's about a 55-minute drive from my house. It's nothing.
Yeah.
And it beats being in Monroe having to drive 3.5 hours.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's going to be a lot to dive into on this legislative session. And
always.
All right, I got to start with this. I didn't want to start with this, but I got to start with this. State Representative Joe Marino not only wants a raise, but wants to more than triple the salary of state legislators. Moon, there's no way. There's no way in any conceivable universe that this passes.
I think this amount of money won't pass, Brian, but it's years ago when we fought this the first time, actually got it passed. And if Bobby Jindal had made a promise, we wouldn't have beat it then. He was letting it become, he had made a deal with them on some bill that they were going to pass the race. And I hate to go back on him. I just want to go back real quick.
Yeah, no, go for it.
He said, okay, y'all can pass it. And what he decided to do, he said, I'm not going to veto it.
Pocket veto.
I'm not going to veto it, and I'm not going to pass it.
Right.
In other words, it become law after
I remember
a certain amount of days. And then what popped up was he had made a lot of promises. And one of the promises he made was that I would not allow legislative pay raises. And the pay raise will be retroactive to them.
Right.
And what he was really saying was, I'm not going to allow pay raises for them to vote on them and then to get them. In other words, it could have been for them, but they didn't vote that way. They voted to vote for pay raises for themselves. Bel Air was voted for, by the way. And what Bobby Jindal did was he decided to veto because, he had to run for re-election. And it looked bad if he allowed the pay raises, and that was a promise he had made, one of the promises he made. So he had to back off personally from
right.
that. This is a little different in the fact that there's so much money down there. And they keep running out with the 16-8, the 16-8. Let's feel sorry for them. That, you got to remember, what most people don't follow what you follow. And most people don't follow what I follow. Just a fact. It's not that we're so knowledgeable. It's just that we follow stuff that a lot of people don't. So I saw some articles where Marino said, well, I talked to somebody and asked, how much you think we make? And people telling me 60, 75,000. I said, no, we make 16.8. But you go read the articles and check it out. Here's what's not being said. You ready?
Yeah.
It's 16.8. They get $500 a month to do whatever they want to do with it. Mm-hmm. It's in they can put it in their pocket.
Right.
They could they could buy a vehicle. Okay. So that automatically knocks them up to 22.6. Then Joe admitted on his last two tax returns, he made 26, 28, or 32,000. So he's already admitted he's making more money than that.
Right.
Okay. The other thing that we're not looking to is, and there's two other big ones I consider. Okay. Do you have a campaign account?
I do not.
Okay. Well, what you do with your campaign account is, this is where you can go buy. Let's say Brian wanted a new F-150. Mm-hmm. Brian had $600,000, $200,000. This is not 100% everybody now. This is with some of them. They could take that campaign account and go buy a vehicle. Unless something's changed since the last time, they could go buy a vehicle. For me and you to go buy a vehicle, at, let's say $40,000, which would be cheap now.
Right.
Okay? You and me better make about 60.
Okay.
Because we're only taking money after taxes, okay, to pay for 40. They could take a campaign account and go pay for it, and they ain't got to pay a penny. They can say it's a campaign expense. They don't talk about that. The other thing that's not being talked about is really big, is that nobody talks about the benefit of being a legislator that helps their business back home.
So,
by me, that's
it's unquantifiable
to me.
because it's different for every legislator. There's no way to put a number on it because Joe Marino can use that to a different level of advantage as Jack McFarland. It just, no matter who you are or where you are.
And by the way, when I said that, you notice I didn't say all.
No, I know.
I didn't say all. But let me tell you what. You think of John, let's take a Larry. Larry was there for 48 years. He had a CPA firm, an accounting firm. I don't know if it's CPA accounting, but they do about the same thing. And you think he ever made any money because he was John Larry in the legislature?
Come on.
Asking.
No, I know.
Francis Thompson been there 52 years. You think he ever made any money? And I can go on and on. I call her Paula Davis. They passed all this marijuana. Her husband is benefiting greatly from the passing of the marijuana law.
Wait, she didn't have a direct effect on that, though.
She might have not had, but don't tell me because she's not elected official that don't help. Tanner McGee's the same way. His wife is in the business. She's making money. They may have not voted for it. But all I'm saying is, if you look, I can take every. To
be fair, if you've got separation within there, there's a certain point where
I'm making a point of this, Brian.
Okay,
you make a good point. You could say she had nothing to do with it,
right?
And you in a court of law, you're probably gonna beat me. I'm telling you, as an elected official, because of your name and title, it helps you. It doesn't hurt you.
There's a difference when you've got those degrees of separation versus having, I don't know, the Hilario Center on the West Bank, which would be a great place for a wedding reception. By the way.
All I'm saying, all I'm saying is if you go through these elected officials, you'll find a lot of them. I tell you, here's another test, one we can't prove, but I bet my whole house on it. A legislator that's been there 8, 12, 16 years, whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about somebody who's been there a while.
Yeah.
I bet you their net worth's a lot higher now than it was when they wanted into the legislature.
So,
but they grind about we don't make enough money.
Right.
Another thing, too, and I think you've talked about it, is that show me what you've done before I give you a pay raise. If you get a pay raise, you work for this station, a lot of works for this station, things are going good, numbers are up, they're selling more advertising, probably pay raises. But if all that goes down and I go walk and say, hey, Brian, we're going to give you a big pay raise even though we're losing money.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. What do we get for this new fee we're going to pay?
Right. And the thing is, I don't think it's going to pass. You think it's going to pass with a lower number?
I don't have a lot of hope that they're going to beat it. The good news is it takes 2/3 of vote.
Right.
Now Republicans are bragging about this supermajority they got in the House and Senate. Let's see what does it make them. What does it look like when they pass something like that? You know, one of the biggest things, and of course you may talk about it, is the debt ceiling. I got a big problem with raising the debt ceiling. You got all these Republicans, 2/3 House and 2/3 in the Senate, and you're going to raise the debt ceiling to keep spending?
Wait, debt ceiling on the federal government?
No, the spending cap. Spending cap. I don't think they ought to raise spending cap.
I don't think they're going to.
That may be, and by the way, the only reason I flipped it on you was that may be more important than the pay raise.
So the thing about the pay raise, and we can move on after this, is they're also going to have to vote on giving teachers a pay raise. And unless you give teachers every dime they're looking for and then triple your own salary after that.
You think there's a difference between $43,200 and $3,000?
I mean, well, yeah, no. But that's my point, though. The optics of it. It's not the hard numbers of it. It's the optics of it. You're going to look like a complete moron.
Let me ask you a quick question. California, New York, and Illinois, they have full-time employees as legislators.
Yeah.
They make somewhere between $70,000, and $120,000 or $130,000. They get all the perks and all that stuff, too. Don't forget, by the way, these people eat free for almost everywhere they go.
Yes.
Do you consider that states booming states that are doing very well?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I don't buy into we're going to get better people. That would be like me saying, I'm going to vote for it, I'm leaving, I'm not going to benefit it. Brian's staying. I want better people than Brian. Throwing your buddies under the bus, aren't you, by saying you're going to get better people? Are you admitting we had a bunch of thugs?
Or, and the flip side of this is, are you telling me you're sandbagging your own job because you're not making enough? That doesn't make sense.
I still will tell you this, and I use Davis and Tanner McGee as an example. If you're in the legislature, it doesn't hurt your business. I'm telling you, it helps. It may not help direct, which you were making a point.
Right.
Don't tell me it don't help you indirectly, because I believe it does. Crime
bills in this session, I think, are going to get a lot more attention than you would expect from a primarily fiscal session. But crime bills in this session are going to take center stage. You're based out of Lafayette.
Yes, sir.
This affects Baton Rouge and New Orleans a heck of a lot more, though Lafayette's not immune.
I don't know, man. It's happening all the time now. Yeah. We got some little areas around, like Opelousas and New Iberia, and they're making the news every day with shootings. They are.
Yeah.
But Lafayette's starting to pick up the steam a little bit, too, and I'm worried. But you are correct. Shreveport would be another area that would be pretty bad.
Absolutely.
You know what, Brian? When I look at the crime bills, I kind of look at, okay, to pass a crime bill is good. Are you going to pass a crime bill with teeth? Okay, so to pass a crime bill and say, hey, we passed all these crime bills, let's high-five each other, that's one thing. What do they really do? And here's the kicker. What kind of enforcement is in it? Because you and I both know, we know, our law enforcement people, they need to support.
Yeah.
Right now, with all the stuff that went on with law enforcement, you guys had a big problem here, I know, in the past. And I'm more worried about making sure we back our men in blue, men and women in blue, back into people that could do the job and giving them everything they need to fight the crime so it don't enter my house where I got to shoot somebody.
We went through a lot of criminal justice reform recently, in recent years, and I know there's a look to kind of scale some of that back. But outside of that, though, knowing what the role is, I think, for the state is going to be difficult because you and I have both seen year after year after year, the role of the state government is whatever the hell state government wants its role to be.
Whatever they want to vote on.
Right.
I just know this. if you read the stats about Baton Rouge and Caddo and New Orleans and Louisiana in general, if we're not going to do anything to change that, then don't pass any crime bills.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm tired of putting cosmetics on their face and make it look like we've done something. Do something. And I'm going back to what I told you. Are we going to help our police, state troopers? Are we going to get behind them? We want to spend some money. I want to spend some money beefing that up and making sure we got people in the right places. I think a governor, the next governor, ought to have to talk about crime and what you're going to do, because this governor did nothing. I'm not a big fan of the government. Besides that, he's done nothing to change that. So the next governor, who you believe is going to be a Republican, I believe is going to be a Republican.
Yeah.
Okay. What are they talking about when it comes to crime? Who's going to be the person out of those 6, 7, 5, whatever it is, independent, and even Sean Wilson? What are they really going to do? Because I think it does matter with the governor's leadership.
No, it absolutely does. It sets the tone. And this is something that our current governor was in favor of, that criminal justice reform that we saw in recent years that, quite honestly, has more criminals back on the street. Has turnstile back out there.
Yeah, and Brian, they're trying to say, well, that had nothing to do with the crime statistics. Man, don't tell me. Every one is a stat up.
Yeah.
And the governor, now look, the Republicans, I like to get on both sides. The Republicans are the one that passed this, and I felt like they passed the bill because it was based on, you know what, we're going to pass this. We need to do some reform. We need to get the media on our side. We need to get the minorities to love us. So we're going to pass this bill. I don't think they read the bill. I don't think they read a lot of these bills. I think they pass it and say, okay, well, maybe somebody will like me.
See,
not a reason
insane.
to pass the bill.
That's insane. And we read the bill so we can talk about the bill. We don't even have a say on whether or not it moves forward.
You don't remember, you might not remember this because I don't know how young you are.
46.
I'm
46.
Okay, you might. You remember when Jim Tucker was the speaker?
I do.
Jim Tucker, I'll never forget this. He said, he's the Speaker of the House. And me and Jim, I like Jim, but we used to fight back and forth, which is good. I don't think that's bad. So Jim said it one day on the bill. He said, let's vote on bill, House bill, whatever. Boom. And when he hit the gavel to vote, he turned with the mic on to his secretary or whatever. He said, what are we voting on?
He's Moon Griffon coming up after this show. We're going to break for your money now. Stick around. Moon's going to close it out with us next.
I used to see the sad thing. I used to have that sloppy and I lost it.
When Tucker was the speaker, I will never forget this, but I'm watching it online. You could not find me a more bored, disengaged individual than that day one where it's like, this is this goes to the Commerce Committee, this goes to that committee. Jim Tucker, just his eyes were just glazed over, rolled back in his head, just
this
gavel.
And by the way,
gavel.
I saw Jim at the maybe at lobby one of the deals.
Okay.
And so this is the funny thing about Jim. So the Republicans under Jim, though, that's when a lot of them turned on me because I started challenging Jim. They just turned on me. I'm talking about friends, and I can name names, and we all got crossed. Okay. Jesus. So they decide they're going to send Jim Tucker to put me in my place. I get a call and say, Tucker wants to come on the program. He said, I'm going to tell you, he said he's going to embarrass the shit out of you. And I said, what time does he want to come on? How long does he have?
Right.
It's going to be great. And I don't know what he's going to say. He got on the program. And when I tell you, I ain't that bright. He was so tongue-tied when I got finished with him. I was laughing. I said, Jim, you cannot articulate anything that I've talked about today. And he just was. If there was something I burned him on, he was solid. I said, Jim, you're solid. Why are you so quiet? I don't know. I got to check it. He had to check in shit that I knew. That's when you just said he was so engaged. He wasn't engaged.
He was disengaged. Yeah. I saw him at Washington Mardi Gras this year. I don't even know. I didn't talk to him. I don't even know what he's up to these days.
You know what? I did talk to him, and I didn't really find out what he was doing. I forgot what he was doing. But what I'm saying is they sent Jerry Luke LeBlanc one time. This was in Blanco administration. Now, Blanco would call in, and Mike Frost and Blanco picked the phone and called me.
Yeah.
I had no problem going head up with me, and I enjoyed that. Bobby wouldn't call me. He wouldn't even talk to me.
Well,
so that's fine.
Bobby he didn't do the monthly radio show. He did like the call-in show that Mike Foster started, Kathleen Blanco did, John Bell Edwards has done for the last 7.5 years.
He wouldn't do it.
Jindal didn't do it.
Jindal wanted everything scripted, and I found that out later. But
well, be fair though, how much of that was Jindal and how much of that was his handlers? And at the end of the day,
I'm gonna say Timothy.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
And you're right, because Bobby was such involved, and he had tunnel vision, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And people had the wide vision of trying to get and move all these parts and pieces and hurt Bobby. And I didn't dislike him personally.
Bobby Jindal as state representative versus Bobby Jindal as governor were two different people altogether. That was, you're talking about a guy
Brian,
who,
when he walked out, he just got elected. He walked out to do the State of the Union. Everybody points to that. I'm not just pointing to that, but I tell you, Temple set that up like he was coming around the corner. He was the president. He was the governor. He should have been sitting at his governor's desk, Governor Bobby Jindal, say, good morning.
Right.
Good day, American people. Great to be with you today. And just talk. The other thing they did in that speech, they slowed him down. I talk a lot and talk fast.
No, I remember this.
He went.
It was so unnatural.
What the hell are you doing? Talk.
It was so unnatural. Yeah.
The funniest general story. We got a second left?
We do. We got 2 minutes.
Okay, you love this. So Ruth Ulrich. I had a Alondra. Okay. Am I saying your name right? What's the name? Alondra. I said Alondra. I apologize. Don't worry, I'll get it right. Take me about 8 more trips. But don't worry about it. So Bobby Jindal had come on the program of the year, 43 times in 18 months. He wanted to come on 103 times. It was pitiful. So I told Ruth, I said, she said, oh, by the way, Bobby's on. I said, damn it, Ruth. I said, he was on. So anyway, she said, I'm sorry they called to come. I said, I told you, they can't come every day.
Right.
So I told Ruth, I said, look, when he starts the program, the music was already started. I said, look, I'm going to ask him a question. I'm on the bathroom, give me a Diet Coke. She said, what? I said, trust me, you'll still be talking. She said, no, don't do that. Don't do that. I said, yeah. So I said, hey, Congressman, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, I asked him a question. I took the headset off. She said, no. And I put the, now, first of all, I knew Ruth could take it over if I didn't show up on time.
Right.
Okay. But I walk out. I literally went to the bathroom. Got me a Diet Coke. Almost 2 or 3 minutes.
Nice.
I walked back in.
Still going.
She's going. I said, I told you, he answers 8 questions on 1.
Right.
And he didn't have to do that with me.
And to try and slow him down is...
So I did. And then when he got to the end of the conversation, and great question. I said, okay, something else to ask him. Bruce is over there going. I said, I told you. I said, I'm probably going to ask the question he already answered. And sure enough, I asked the question. He said, I mentioned that earlier.
I know. I was looking for you to elaborate.
He had answered the question before I asked it.
That's funny. And he did that a lot.
Huh?
He did that a lot.
Did you interview him a bunch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I figured you had to interview him.
Well, so I started in as a host in 2011, so I got the last 2 years of him.
Okay.
But I've had him on since coming back. I've had him on in recently. Well, not recently.
You've had him on in the last few years?
In the last year.
What's he doing?
It's not like lobbying, but it's kind of like lobbying. So,
does he have like a Heritage Foundation?
Sort of.
Okay.
Hang on. I don't even remember.
Is he still living here?
No, he's up in D.C.
Does he live in D.C.?
Yeah.
Okay, he did move. Somebody told me he was at the Louisiana, that big, nice neighborhood at one time or somewhere in there. I didn't keep up with him. He needed to get out of here, I'm sure.
Yeah. All right. What? Okay, thank you. All right. 856 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. The Moon and Griffon Show coming up next. We've got a little sneak preview of the legislative session with Moon, as he's nice enough to sit in before get cranked up. Moon, I asked this of Daniel Earthbomber. Biggest social issue that you think is going to make its way through the legislative session is what?
I think there's some people, we have a very, very tough anti-abortion law now.
Yep.
And there are people, even on the Republican side, they want to loosen that a little bit. And I think that's going to end up being the biggest fight. The LGBTQ thing, I think they ought to just wipe that off the table, and we ought to live and quit pushing stuff down. I thought, listen, you can be anything you want to be. I do not care if you want to be a girl or boy. I just think the big fight there is that, look, we got to protect our schools and our kids. And if somebody wants to teach their kid that, that's fine. That's their business. I get it. But at schools, reading, writing, and arithmetic, I think the abortion issue is going to end up being a bigger issue than that. That's just my opinion.
There's a half dozen abortion bills.
Yeah.
In a primarily fiscal session, there's a half dozen abortion bills. There's a couple of them that I think are very important because from the time that the Supreme Court made their ruling, there were a number of doctors in Louisiana that would step away from a medical procedure of a futile pregnancy, and they were kind of hiding behind the law the way it was written. And it garnered a lot of headlines, and they got to make a pregnant girl be the spokesperson and just run her out there. And it was a sad situation across the board. But formalizing language is going to be important.
Oh, no, I agree 100%. I think you're right on the money. I just don't think they have to do a whole lot. Listen, this is how simple this should be, Brian, and it's never simple, I understand. It should be simple. The Supreme Court made a ruling. If the state of Louisiana wants to outlaw every abortion they can.
Right.
If the state of Texas, not saying they have, state of Minnesota, state of New York, they want to kill babies, then I call it kill babies, abortion, then they got a right. It's more of a state's rights.
Yes.
And I don't agree with either. I don't agree with that. But I live in Louisiana. I could at least ought to live in a state where the Supreme Court says, hey, y'all want to protect babies at all costs, you can do it. Now I'm saying, what's wrong with that? You can still have abortions in more states than you can't. Even with the ruling of the Supreme Court.
Right. But that's the whole point of the argument before it got to the Supreme Court was this is not a national issue.
It should have never been
It's a state-by-state issue. The LGBTQ plus thing, Governor John Bel Edwards may have painted himself into a corner when last year he said this is a solution in search of a problem. No. Because if it's a solution in search of a problem, why
are we still doing it?
Right.
No,
exactly.
He's painted himself a corner, but he's done. He's out. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What he has done, though, he's hurt the Democrats. He's hurt white Democrats especially. Because what happens is, we had that race between Lacombe and Kleinpeter?
Yep.
That race was determined on that because Lacombe had staked with Edwards on not protecting girls' sports. He hurt Lacombe bad in that election. And I don't know Lacombe. I know Kleinpeter, good guy.
Caleb?
But, really good guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know Lacombe, might be too. But my point being, he hurt him in that election bad because of what he did with that legislation to protect our young girls.
Moon Griffon coming up next right here on Talk 107.3 FM. The legislative session gets underway today. Appreciate you hanging out for a couple minutes.
Thank you, Brian. God bless.
Here comes ABC News.